Hi guys, this is Vivalt from DIALRun. I'll be talking about data integration and migration today. I'm going to show you how multiple data integration requirements can be combined in a single casting process using DIALRun. Not only this, but through this video, you'll be also able to find some really interesting features which are incorporated inside DIALRun. As you can see, I'll be achieving all the requirements on the version 2.0 of this platform. So let's get started. So after registering and logging in, right now we are here at the main interface of the DIALRun app. Here we can see 4 major functionalities. First among those is manage connections. Here we can do a connection to different source and destination data. So basically we are going to integrate the data between different environments. The other functionalities include manage models, manage casts, and manage dial. Let's check these functionalities later in the video and go ahead with the present requirement. The goal of this video is to incorporate multiple requirements into a single cast and see how 2 different data integration happens in parallel. So I'll be trying out 2 requirements. In this case, I'm going to export data from customers table to CSV. And the second one is to export multiple datasets to multiple SQL Server tables. In a way, I'm coupling 3 migrations and will be making them run asynchronously. This is going to help a lot of people to maintain various data migration requirements in a single deployment. So let's go ahead and choose MySQL as our adapter. We can see 2 methods here. We'll be using MySQL over SSH. You'll not be able to find this connection type in other data integration tools. Let's give this connection a new name and also add all the credentials needed for SSH and MySQL database. In the meanwhile, I just wanted to tell you that I never came across a tool which can handle exporting of multiple datasets. So this is quite unique. As I've added all the credentials now, I'll choose the required database and click submit. We can see here that a new connection is created using MySQL. It still can be edited or deleted if needed. The next step is to create a model. A model is a reference to a repository of data. For example, a table within a database, a complex SQL query, a web service, or even a complete XML. For example, an Excel file can have multiple sheets, and in that case, a model can reference a sheet within that XML, or a model can be created to reference all the sheets. A XML can have list of items or list of orders. In that case, 2 models can be created, one for items dataset and other for orders dataset. Or a single model can be created referencing both the items and orders datasets. So for this MySQL, we'll choose a model. I'll go with model based on a single connection. We'll choose the connection which we have just created in the previous step. To choose a model type, there are 2 options, a data object or a direct query. We'll go ahead with data object as I'm interested in just exporting a customer table, but if I want to export any other tables, I can create multiple models referencing the other tables or SQL queries all coming from the same connection. Moving ahead, we see that several tables have been displayed here in the choose model section. Let's try clicking on the first option, that is customers. If I double click on the list of tables, I can see the list of all fields coming in the choose tags panel. I can select all the columns to be part of the selected tag section, or I can choose the fields which I want to be exported. I can even drag and drop items accordingly, a perfect functionality to add or delete. Let's name and label this model and hit create. So now we see that the model is created. Let's move on to the next step. The next step is casting. The casting process is where we actually incorporate our requirement, that is design and code the workflow process. We'll create a new cast and create a new choose. There are 3 functionalities, choose, mark, and populate. Choose is where we choose all the datasets to play as a part of source datasets. We can create multiple choose sets. In my case, as I have 2 requirements, that is 2 choose sets, the first one for exporting the MySQL table to CSV, and second one is to export XML data to our SQL server. Still, I have an option to bundle both the requirements to a single choose set. I'll try to show some examples in my next videos. Do check them out. So we'll define a requirement by adding our choose set. Let's go ahead and edit it. We'll choose the model which we had created earlier. Let's not worry about filtering the data here for now, as we need all the data to be extracted. We move ahead to mark, where we generate the datasets from the choose sets. In this case, mark is going to give me one dataset as it's one table. In some other cases, it might differ. Here, we can also go ahead and rename and click apply. Now we see that data is confirmed. Dataset now needs to be configured. Populate is a place where we can configure this dataset that needs to be exported to a destination. When I click on configure, it is going to show me all the fields which are a part of dataset. But at this point of time, we want to export the whole table to CSV. We can also do other options to export other model. Here, the mapping process may come into picture. But for now, I'm going to stick to export to CSV. Next, we can choose a populate mode and apply. There are two options, strict and use all. In this case, we need to use all, and I'm not going to worry about filtration. We just need to give a name and save the cast. Now the cast is created. Now the dial cast is ready to be deployed on the server. I'm going to click on deploy. Manage dial is where we schedule, run, view logs and view output of a dial. We can see that our cast is here and we can schedule it to run. Since it's going to be a single export, I just wanted to run it for once. Let me select the day and time it to run. Let's check the log. Since there are no errors, I'll click on history. It seems that our export is ready. We'll click on export and download the file. This file can be opened now. Let's check it out. As we can see, we have successfully converted the MySQL database to a CSV. The second requirement is to export data from XML to two tables in SQL Server. I'll create a connection from the XML within dial so that it can generate multiple datasets. I have chosen a random XML from the web. I'll create a new connection after I copy the XML. As you can see, this is not at all a well-structured XML. Looking into this XML, I can see that it contains customer data and orders data. The reason why it is unstructured is because the customer ID attribute is not a part of full address, and if I want to export full address to a different table, I can't reference or index that with a valid customer ID. But Dial has the advanced intelligence to incorporate reference and indexes, which I'm going to show you in a bit. Let's name this. Once I've pasted it, I'll create a new connection. So we see that this connection is created. Parallelly, I'll create one more connection for SQL Server. Even here, I'll be adding all the credentials and choose the database. So let's create models for the XML datasets. I can see that this XML has two datasets, one for customers and another one for orders. So there are multiple XML aggregations which are predefined in Dial. So let me choose aggregate type 1. It gives me 4 datasets. Let me click on customers. I can see all the child tags here as well as attribute customer ID. I'm going to click on full address and show you what I meant by DIALRun's intelligent parsing of XML. I can see all the tags within full address listed here along with its customer attribute ID that got referenced from parent customer tag. Let me choose aggregate type 3 and show you the difference. Clicking on full address again, I can see that all the tags within full address as well as the tags from parent customer tag along with its attribute customer ID is completely listed here. So probably if the requirement is to move the entire customer data to a single table, I might have to choose full address dataset because if I click on customer, it doesn't have full address tags. If my requirement is to move customers data to one table and address data to another table, I'll be choosing aggregate type 1 because customer ID attribute is automatically indexed within full address. I guess the same concept lies for orders and ship info. In future versions, there are going to be more aggregations which are going to be incorporated. For this model type, I'm going to choose the whole entity, and for the aggregate type, I'm selecting type 3. Doing that, DIALRun will automatically generate all the datasets and I can choose what I want to export. Two more models have to be created. Let's create them. We'll choose SQL library which we already created and name it customers as it's for export. Now all the models are created and I'm going to go in Manage Casts. As per my requirement, I want to deploy two different requirements into a single cast. The first requirement was moving MySQL data to CSV, which I've already showed to you. And now I'm going to move data from XML to two tables in the SQL server. I'm going to couple that requirement in the existing casts. For that, I'll go to Active Casts. This is the cast which I have used for the previous requirement. I'm going to just edit the cast, which is again a unique feature in DIALRun. I'm going to simply rename the existing cast to something more meaningful. Multiple requirement single cast. Now I'm going to click on Choose. We can see that already there is a choose set. For the second requirement, I'm going to create one more choose set. I'll call it XML data source. I'll click on Edit. Here I can see the previously created models. I'll choose XML model. I don't want any filtration to happen, so I'll click on non-applicable icon here as I want all the databases to be part of this choose set. Let me go in and mark it. As you can see, the first requirement, that is the first choose set, is already marked. Now I would like to go and mark the second choose set. Since I selected aggregate type 3 while I was creating XML model, the full address dataset is going to contain data from customer stack as well as its own. So it's a good idea for me to choose full address dataset because the customer table in SQL Server is a single table that contains both customer as well as address columns within it. Let me show you the table. It has ID, name, phone, address, city, state, country, and contact name. So it's a good idea to rename this to something more meaningful, say new customers. The same explanation lies even for orders and ship info. Ship info dataset contains all the tags within ship info and also from its parent orders. Let me show the table new orders. It has order ID, customer ID, order date, and shipped info as well. So it's a good idea to populate this ship info data set to this table. I'm going to rename ship info as new orders. Now I have marked all the required data sets for the both requirements. I'm going to go in populate now. Here in populate, the first requirement is already configured. I'm not going to worry about it. In the second requirement, I have 4 datasets listed. But I'm just going to configure new underscore customer and new underscore order. That is the marks which we have renamed just a while ago. So let me go ahead and click configure on new customers. For destination, I'm going to choose the new customers table from SQL Server. Scrolling down, on left I can see all the fields, that is the customer as well as address from XML source. On the right, I can see all the columns from the SQL Server table, that is new customers. Now is the time for me to start mapping the source and the destination, which we call as tags in DIALRun. I'm going to simply click on attribute customer ID on the left and click on ID column on the right. That means all the data coming from the customer ID attribute is going to be populated into the ID column on the right. So once I map them, I can also do multiple maps by mapping the same customer ID with many columns on the right. One-to-many mapping like this is not available in other integration tools. I will quickly map the company name, address, city, and so on for all the fields. Once I map it, I can see that the tag has a mapped status on the source. And even in the destination model, I can see the name of the field that it is mapped to. I can see that all the fields are mapped correctly, but this time I'm going to do some additional configuration. I am planning to run this cast on a daily basis so that the customer data is updated for existing customers and created for new customers at the SQL server. So in a way, I want to reuse the same cast for both first-time data loading as well as syncing the data from XML to SQL Server on a daily basis. So for this, I'm going to apply a based on condition. Making sure that the customer ID, if it exists in the new customers table, it will only amend. We can see that the condition is now applied. Moving ahead to choose the populate mode, we can use strict or use all. If I use strict, the program is going to check for the condition whether there is an existing value for the customer ID in the new customers table. If no, it's not going to do anything. But for my requirement, I want to update or create new row if the customer ID is not present. So I'm going to respect all the data which will be coming from the XML datasets. So I'll select use all and apply. Now we see that the mark new underscore customer ID is applied and configured. Now is the time to configure orders dataset from the XML and map this to new underscore orders table in SQL Server. So I'll hit configure and select destination model as new underscore orders. I can see fields starting from ship via, ship date attribute and so on from the XML. Also, it contains the order information like customer ID, employee ID, order date, etc. from the parent order tag. So firstly, I would want to map the order ID to destination on the right. But oops, I can't find the order ID here. I'm sure you remember that this is an unstructured XML, because it doesn't even have the order ID to reference a particular order. So to solve this problem, I'm going to apply a random number generator script in the fx function. I'll choose JavaScript. As seen, here are a few more options which will be inculcated soon in this section. For now, let's go ahead with JavaScript and jQuery option. From the internet, I found a script to generate a random number in alphanumeric. That is, it will generate characters as well as numbers. I'll paste it here. But in order for dial to use the value generated by the script, I'll have to use this command dial_use. I'll hit on validate fx before applying. Great, it's validated and can be applied now. Once this is done, I can still change it by clicking on Effects. Moving ahead, I can now map the customer ID and order date. Now let me find which source field I can use for the shipped column. Oh, I can't find any. Let me go and check the XML. I guess the ship date attribute is the one I need to use because I can see that for this order there is a valid ship date value, but for another order I can't see the ship date value. So I'm just going to assume that if the ship date attribute is there for an order, then the status is shipped, else it's not shipped. I know that in new underscore orders table, the shipped column accepts 1 for shipped and 0 for not shipped. So I'm going to first map the attribute shipped date to shipped column on the right. But I want to apply a script on the top of the mapping. This is pretty unique in DIALRun. Let me click on Effects. Now I'm going to write a script which is going to use the value I have mapped. So according to the script which I have just added, if there is a valid ship date attribute in XML, then the length of that string is going to be greater than 0. For that, I have asked dial to use or apply value equal to 1, which will be populated into the shipped column. If there is no value for shipped date, then the system is going to populate 0. This is pretty amazing feature in DIALRun, and I have never seen any other tool that does this. I'm going to validate and apply the effects. Now I need to populate value for carrier. Going back to the XML, we can see that the value of ship via is a number and it carries for every order. So I'm just going to come up with my own definition. If the ship via value is equal to 1, I'm going to tell dial to apply or populate value for UPS for the carrier. And if it's 2, then populate FedEx and so on and so forth. Just a reminder that this is a sample XML. So I'm just going to assume some carriers for the given numbers, but in a real-time scenario, you might have to get the exact reference. I'm going to first map the ship via to carrier on the right and going to add a script. In the script, I'm going to use switch case to apply the values. So all the required fields are mapped and I can go ahead to choose the populate mode, that is again I'll choose use all and hit apply. So all the required datasets are now configured. The first requirement that exports data from MySQL to CSV, and second requirement that export customer and orders data from XML to 2 tables in SQL Server. Now I'm going to save the cast. Now this cast is ready to be deployed. Let's deploy it. Let me go in the Manage Dial section to schedule a run. If everything is successful, we should see the MySQL data exported to CSV, which we already saw in the first part of this video. But now this is bundled up with the second requirement of exporting XML to tables in SQL Server, that is in new underscore customers and new underscore orders. As per the XML, we should see 4 customers that should be populated in new underscore customers and all orders in new underscore orders. So now let me go and schedule the run to once per day. Let's check the log. Great! We see that the dial has completed without any errors. So let me check the first requirement. I'm just going to download the CSV file which is generated. Let's open it. Awesome, we can see all the 123 records from MySQL here in the CSV file. Let's go ahead and check out the SQL Server tables too. Yes, the new underscore customer table does contain 4 records and all the data is here and looks perfect. Let's see the new underscore orders table now. Excellent, I can see all the orders listed here. The best part is that the alphanumeric script is also working to generate an order ID. Ship status is also correctly applied in accordance with the availability of ship date attribute. And the freight carrier name looks perfect too. So we have successfully bundled two requirements of MySQL to CSV and XML to SQL Server tables using DIALRun. I'm pretty sure with amazing functionalities, DIALRun is an innovation in data integration and automation. One-of-a-kind tool that lets user manipulate data between data sources, application and services. Imagine having a tool with no software to download or install, no hassles of learning and no code to manage. DIALRun is the right app for all your simple and most complex requirements. I'll be soon back with more exciting videos. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.